suckers for a happy ever after story. I'm not just talking about movies or novels. I'm talking about religions and spiritual traditions and self-help gurus and new age guides. Anybody who's got a happy ever after story to sell is probably going to do good business, because we're all so desperate for this totally unfeasible happy ever after story. Why do we want a happy ever after story? Well, it's really just the mind's way of trying to satisfy the will to life. The thing, and I know I go on about it, but it's just our central driver. This whole thing of wanting to persist in our existence, which is just this incredibly cruel setup. Human beings can see that they're going to die one day, but everything within them, every instinct, wants to live. You couldn't have set up a better cosmic joke than that one. And if you've read my article on the Corporeal Fantasy website, the God Bitch Slaps Satan article, you'll know that God is rolling over in tears, generation after generation, looking at human beings pretending that they're having a good time when they know they're going to die, but every instinct within them wants to live. At least the animals really seem to have no awareness of the fact that one day they're going to become nothing. But poor old human beings, we need happy ever after stories to make it all right. So let's go through a few of these happy ever after stories. Well, there's salvation as sold by the Christian church. If you're lucky and if God wants you and Jesus saves you, then there's your happy ever after story. Or maybe you achieve samadhi, some kind of liberation, whatever that means. And then there's things like philosophy. There are some philosophies, not a lot of philosophies actually. The philosophers tend to be a bit more objective about it, but there are some philosophies that just proclaim that God is great and God is good and everything's going to be okay. Leibniz was one of the guys. He said that we live in the best of all possible worlds. Well, you wouldn't want to see the worst of all possible worlds, would you, if that's the case? And then we have people like Gurdjieff selling an immortal soul. If you work hard enough and do what he says, then maybe you can build an immortal soul. So that was his selling point. And there's moksha, and maybe being a Reiki master might be enough for you. $400 or $500, and you can become a Reiki master. And all of those kind of things. So there's no shortage of people selling happy ever after stories, because our minds need that to effectively negate the reality that we're all aware of, that we all drop off the end of the conveyor belt one day. Now, you probably have, if you've listened to previous podcasts of mine, you'll know that I mention Spinoza quite a lot. I kind of love and hate Spinoza. I love him because some of his logic is just so, it's just so sharp. It's like a razor's edge. But he waffles on interminably about God. And yet most people who read Spinoza say that he was an atheist. Personally, I don't care whether he was an atheist or whatever he believed. But for Spinoza, God was the same as nature. And even in Spinoza, you get statements like the man of reason contemplates on life and never thinks about death, or something like that. Well, nice if you want to do that. I mean, you can do that. Why not do it? Well, there's a good reason why you shouldn't do it, really, and that is that if you do that, then when bad things happen, as they surely will, you'll be totally unprepared for it. It's sort of like he says that in one part, so the wise man contemplates life and never thinks about death, and then part 5 of his ethics, half of it is about death. So even poor old Spinoza couldn't cover the whole thing over in the way that he would have liked. And we have people like Shakespeare who suggest that actually after death might be worse than life. Now how's that for an unhappy ever after story? And Schopenhauer, who just really threw his hands up and said, it's all a shit show, and I take my comfort in the Upanishads. And that's what he did. So there is this overwhelming need within us to find a happy ever after story. What if we could say to ourselves, there is no happy ever after story? I mean, is that another happy ever after story? Are we finding some kind of kludge just to get through the whole thing? Well, let me tell you something. As you approach death, and I've spoken to various people about this who've been near to death and then recovered, and something I was privileged to experience about 11 years ago actually. As you approach death, then what happens is your thinking capability just goes. There's no point imagining that some fantastic philosophical system that you have, or some fantastic understanding of the spirit world, or any old mumbo jumbo. Do not think for a minute that that's going to be with you near to the point of death. It's not. Your mind basically shuts down. It just can't think about anything. There's no energy there for it to do that. Same with the emotions. Do not expect that you will have elevated emotions, or you will love God, or whatever. When you are near to death, the emotions go. There's no energy for emotions. And as for your body, well, again, the sense of your body more or less leaves you. Because again, there's no energy. When you're near to death, there's no energy for anything. But interestingly enough, what happens is that your attention and your awareness kind of reduces down into your breathing. Strange thing. And there are obviously Eastern traditions that talk about the importance of breath. And so what you're left with actually, while you still have some level of consciousness, is your breathing. And obviously I didn't die, because I'm here speaking to you. And I recovered. And people who go beyond the breathing thing then say that they go into kind of like a hard to explain, they're everything and nothing at the same time, which actually is the very thing that Schopenhauer talks about. But for people who've not done that, it's all conjecture. However, go down to your doctor, tell him that you want contract viral myocarditis, which is a thing I had, and your heart blows up because it's inflamed and blocks the arteries, and that's how you become very, very weak in many respects. But the important thing is that the thoughts go and the emotions go, and so does your body to a large extent. And this tells us something really important. The happy ever after story is really a negative story. What people try and do is they try and pile stuff on. So I'm going to believe in Jesus, I'm going to believe in God, I'm going to be a Muslim, I'm going to become a Reiki master, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to study philosophy, And what really happens is that they're just piling more stuff on, stuff that will have no relevance whatsoever when they're dying. Now, if you enjoy that stuff, and if it's good entertainment or whatever, then yeah, of course, do it. But in terms of pretending that it has some real meaning, well, forget it. It doesn't. And bothering other people with your own inclinations and beliefs is really almost criminal, because getting someone else to believe in some kind of thing that's going to help them through this life, and actually is no help whatsoever, is, in my view, something of a criminal act. So here's my version of the happy ever after story. Strip away all the crap in your mind. Now, we can't do this fully. I mean, it's impossible. We've spent 20, 40, 60 years building up all this crap, so it's going to take a while to look at it and get rid of it. But ideas like immortality, ideas like morals, there's no moral basis in the world, it's just a human affair. Things like purpose, things like meaning, just weed those things out and throw them away if you can. It's a painful thing, because most people have to believe, for example, there is some purpose to life. Well, I'm not going to tell you whether there is or isn't. You have to reach your own decisions on that. But these are useful things to do, because near the point of death, all that stuff goes anyway. In fact, it's not worth anything. All it is the human mind trying to validate itself in the face of knowledge of its sure death, of its certain death. Same with the emotions, and this is where Spinoza is very good. He gives methods and knowledge to deal with the emotions adequately, so that we're not bothered again with something that is really totally irrelevant near the point of death. Again, if you like indulging in emotions, do it, but don't believe for a minute that you can just indulge in the positive ones. The negative ones are going to sting you as well. So you have that choice. If you want to play with the emotions, if you want to be an emotional person, then go do it. But don't start complaining and weeping when your emotions turn bad and you want sympathy, because you've agreed to play that game. And same with the body. The body needs nourishment and rest and all those kind of things. But don't get all don't get fetishes about it. It's, as long as it's looked after reasonably well, the body's fine. It's going to be a stinking pile of rotting flesh anyway, at some point in time. Either that or it's going to go in an incinerator. And that is my happy ever after philosophy. Basically, consciously destroy those things that go anyway when you die. Does this make you happy? Yes, it does. I don't really mean to sound dogmatic about it, but yes, it makes you happy. Because what happens is, you come to the point where you rely exclusively on your own inner strength. Because, of course, stripping away all those things requires strength and builds strength. And Jesus did say, after all, that the kingdom of heaven is within. And, of course, we have this stupid sort of Middle Ages image of what the kingdom of heaven is like. People walking around holding hands in meadows and butterflies and well, no, none of that. The kingdom of heaven is a part of you, and it's within. There's nothing out there that's interesting or worth fighting for. The kingdom of heaven is within, and actually, as far as I'm concerned, the kingdom of heaven is my own inner strength. And then, with that inner strength, I can say, there is no purpose. There is no meaning to anything. Why would there be meaning to anything? A purely human concept. Why would that have any relevance to the universe? When Spinoza says, insofar as we understand God, nature, or the universe to be the cause of pain, to that extent we feel pleasure. What a strange thing to say. For Spinoza, God, nature, universe is all pretty much the same thing. So he says, insofar as we understand nature, God, to be the cause of pain, which of course it is, because nothing else is going to give you pain, is it? A brick is a part of nature, as is a virus, as is another person that's pissing you off for some reason. So, insofar as we understand God, nature, universe to be a cause of pain, to that extent we feel pleasure. How strange that we should be able to experience pleasure at understanding how this fucking universe gives us pain. And people don't think that actually by focusing on pain and how the universe dishes out pain, we can get some pleasure from that. But I assure you, you can. And Spinoza says it, so it must be right. No, I'm joking. There's some things with Spinoza that I just can't bear, but on that one I think he's right. Now, just to summarise this whole rambling thing, the man who really understood all this, in my opinion, and unfortunately he died, about 10 years ago or thereabouts, was U.G. Krishnamurti. And there's a beautiful, beautiful video on YouTube, I'm going to put the link below, of U.G. actually in his last moments, his last minutes. And he was fully composed, he knew he was dying, he had people around him. And then at one point he just waves his hand, ushers people to, or indicates that people should go out of the room. And they walk out of the room, and he's lay on a sofa, and he dies. Beautiful, beautiful death. And Yuji had no truck with the idea that mind or emotions last beyond death, but he said his body would always be there beyond death because everything that constituted his body would be reformed into other things. So have a look at that. Yuji was a man who just didn't accept any of all the new age spiritual religious bullshit. He was his own man and he had his own strength. So if you want to see that, then watch some Yuji videos. Anyway, I hope that has been entertaining and useful.